Hey guys, it's Jeannie. So I went ahead and created a spreadsheet that can track macros, and be a meal calculator. It's made up of two, I guess, sheets. It's like a workbook, like an Excel workbook with two sheets. So the first sheet is this kind of master list of nutrition facts of food, thanks to the USDA, and the second list is the actual meal calculator. Um, let's talk about the first list really quickly. And the reason why I did this, I just want to get into really briefly, is because I'd been using MyFitnessPal and found it really lacking. It was really hard, first of all, because MyFitnessPal doesn't include net carbs, they only include total carbs. And also because it didn't really give room for me to track my micros, which is the potassium, sodium, magnesium, and calcium. And I find in not just in MyFitnessPal, but or other like meal trackers, but in the keto community in general, I find that people do a lot of talk about net carbs. People do a lot of talk about macros, and they don't really talk so much about micros. And micros are just as important, if not more important, than your macros, because if you've ever had keto flu, what you had was an electrolyte imbalance. And that was an imbalance of your potassium, sodium, magnesium, or calcium. You either weren't getting enough of these four things or you were getting weird amounts of them. It's probably what you weren't getting enough, especially potassium. You probably weren't getting enough potassium. So, yeah, people were, as far as I've been finding, people have been glossing over them, not really explaining how to eat to make sure you get enough, and haven't have really just been focusing on macros, which is not helpful. So I wanted to go ahead and create a spreadsheet that helped really paint a broad picture of what food has what fat, carbs, potassium, protein, every like what has what, basically. So I can make an informed decision of what I'm gonna eat for the week when I go ahead and plan out my meal. Now, I mentioned that most of these numbers are from the USDA's food composition database, which is this site right here, and that link is also available within the spreadsheet right here. It's this link. It'll take you to this site. Most of those numbers Most of these numbers come from that site, but also some of these numbers come directly from labels on the back of products that I purchased. So, for example, B&G hot jalapeno peppers, all of these numbers come from the nutrition label that was on the packaging. The reason I did that really quickly is just because um, if you look up jalapenos on the food composition database, I just show you really quickly. Let's go to standard reference. Jalapenos, peppers, raw. Or actually, I should do jalapeno peppers canned solid because it comes in a can. You'll see here, it says that jalapenos have some potassium in it, which is great. But B&G says that their jalapenos have no potassium. So I didn't want to include the USDA's information for branded products in the event that they really have no potassium in those jalapenos. I don't want to change my daily tally, my daily intake, or I don't want to not get enough potassium using the wrong numbers. So anyway, these are foods that I commonly eat and that I like. Obviously, you might not like these foods or eat any of them, and there are supplements here that you probably don't take. You can definitely customize this whole thing, delete anything that you don't want or need, or add foods that you like that aren't on here. Go to the food composition database, search for, whichever food, for example, raw broccoli, and you can either search standard reference, which will just give you the actual vegetable, or if you choose branded foods, it'll give you the option to find, the specific brand of food that you're looking for. And that would be like, if you ever buy broccoli in packaging, you know, that'll be what you're looking for here in the branded foods area. Also, one other thing I want to point out about this site that I really like, it's really clutch, is their ground beef calculator. So if you buy ground beef, and for example, let's say you buy 70% lean, 30% fat ground beef. You just put that, put the number here. I often buy 70% lean, 30% fat ground beef just because it's better for keto. And let's say you're making burgers. So let's say it's a patty instead of being ground beef. It's a patty, and you're broiling it in a pan. This is actually a lot of times how I make my own burgers. I'm cooking it in a pan. And, add that information there, hit go. A quarter, beef burgers usually come in like a quarter-pound patty. By the time you cook it down, it's about 3 ounces. So this is the number that you want to use. You're going to come here and see, your calories, your protein, your fat, your carbs, which beef has none, and your macros down here below your macros. And it's great. One thing I do want to mention is that you're going to want to make sure you use kcal. I think it's kilocal. Kilocal. Anyway, I think this is kilojoules, and I'm not sure what it's used for or who uses it, where they use it, whatever. But anyway, just to say you can ignore this number. So that's just to show you how. Oops. That's just to show you how you can find foods in this database. In this database. There we go. How you can find foods in this database that you can then add to this list, and how I found foods in this database that I've added to this list. So you know where these numbers come from. Okay, moving on. So once you have this list together, you want to come over to this tab to your meal calculator. And this is where you're going to, hey, you want ground beef and kale and a pork chop for dinner. You're going to just copy those and add them to paste them here so that you can track in your meal calculator what your totals are for the day. So one of the ways this is going to work is you're going to have to input your daily total calorie amount right here in this yellow box. For me, that number is 1,492. That's how many calories I need in a day. You probably don't need that number. Your number is probably different. Maybe you need 2,000 calories a day. Most people don't, from what I've heard, but just for example, just for argument's sake, once you input that number, it's going to change these target numbers here that are going to be compared, your input numbers are going to be compared to, your intake numbers are going to be compared to. This is based off of a standard keto diet. So this is based off of the 75% fat, 75%, 75%, okay, let me backtrack a little. Your 75% fat, your 20% protein, and your 5% net carbs for the day. That's going to make up your 2,000 calories for the day. And how I came up with these numbers is because 1 gram of carbohydrate is 4 calories, 1 gram of protein is also 4 calories, and 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. You don't need to necessarily know the formulas and work the formulas because they're already here for you. You just have to input this daily, your calorie, how many calories you need for the day, and these numbers will automatically populate for you based on the standard keto diet. The other thing is the potassium, sodium, magnesium, and calcium target numbers are based off of recommendations from the National Institutes of Health, but they're specific to me. So you're going to come to the page for the National Institute of Health for potassium, for calcium, for magnesium, and scroll down to their chart. And, I'm a 34-year-old woman who's not pregnant or lactating, so I'm recommended to get 4,700 milligrams of potassium a day. But maybe you are a woman who's lactating, or maybe you are, I don't know, anybody else who's not male or female between the age of 19 and 50. You're just going to come here to this chart, pick the number that you need, and you can input that here so that you can get the right target. So let's say it was, your target was, I don't know, what was the number? 5,100. Let's say you need 5,100 milligrams of potassium a day. You can just change it and you can customize this for yourself so that your target numbers are your target numbers and not mine. The only thing that I couldn't find from the National Institute of Health's website was the recommended amount of sodium. So you can just Google, and it's 2,300 milligrams. Now, I've heard that people who aren't on a keto diet are usually recommended to get somewhere below 2,300 milligrams. But for keto diet, we're actually encouraged to get more salt than people who aren't. So you know, adjust that number how you see fit. Maybe you want to use the 2,300 milligram target. Maybe you want to go a little bit lower. It doesn't matter. This is all customizable to how you want it. Um, and oh, if you're wondering, where do you get your how do you find out what your daily caloric intake should be? There are a number of calorie calculators online or daily calorie recommendations online. I actually used Perfect Keto's cal Perfect Keto's keto calculator. Couldn't get that out. And I like to use a specialized macronutrient calculator because their standard ketogenic calculator actually wound up giving me some number that was way out there as far as like it did not come out to the 75% fat, 20% protein, and 5% carbohydrate. They were telling me to have like 30 grams of carbs, which would not have fallen into that at all. Because as we can see, if you put in what my daily caloric intake should be, we are not anywhere near 30 grams of net carbs at all. So, it's up to you. If you want to use this standard ketogenic calculator of theirs, you can. I've used the specialized macronutrient calculator. Fill out your unit of measurement, your gender, your age, height, weight. If I don't want to gain or lose any weight, so I left this at 0, and then just your body fat. And then I don't fill out anything else because I don't know, it throws things way out of whack and you don't just get the basic um 75-25 keto diet that we all know and love. Um and yeah, so you hit update your goals and then you get these numbers and you'll notice that these numbers are whole numbers. They're, no decimal points there. So these numbers are not going to be quite the same. You're going to just take this total calorie number and input it here. And you'll notice these numbers are not quite the same because I haven't rounded up. I mean, they are rounded, but they're rounded to the nearest hundredth. And they here round to the nearest whole number. So here it's going to be maybe a little bit more accurate because since the USDA numbers that you get, these numbers come to the nearest hundredth, you see? So I made sure to use that hundredth in this spreadsheet. And I made sure to just be consistent across everything and make everything to the nearest hundredth. So, it's not confusing and everything is consistent. But they don't go to the nearest hundredth. So if you want to actually use these numbers instead of using these numbers, you can go ahead and plug this in, plug in the 19 and what was the other one? I think this is just 124. You can go ahead and plug it in how you see fit and just get rid of the formulas that are here. And it's totally fine. It's customizable for you. This is supposed to be to help you meet the targets that you want to meet. Otherwise, if you want to stick to that, really accurate 75% fat, 20% protein, 5% carb, go ahead and just put the daily caloric total here and let these numbers populate for you. And so then the only other thing you do, again, you just come to this master list, copy whichever food you like, that you want to include in your meal plan for the day, and let it total up for you. I'm just going to, hey, let's have a whole bunch of bacon. Just bacon it up real quick. Bacon, 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 bacon. And I mean, hey, our calcium is we're through the roof in calcium. Actually, I thought we'd hit sodium faster, but anyway, it doesn't matter. This is just to demonstrate that it's gonna total up what your food is actually coming up to. Compare that to what your target is, and tell you what your remaining, uh, you know, what's remaining for the food for your day, what you need in your food. Okay. That's it. I will include the link to this spreadsheet in the description. Hopefully, it's a Google Sheet, so hopefully you can download it. If you can't download the Google Sheet, hit me up and I will send you a Dropbox link to the Excel file. Also, as I mentioned, the the USDA.gov URL is in the spreadsheet, but I will also include that in the description, and I will include the National Institute of Health links and the keto calculator in the description as well. So yeah, hopefully this is helpful to you guys. It's been really helpful for me, and good luck with your keto.